You're listening to Not So Live from Asteroid G. I'm Mike Finkelstein. With me in the booth, as always, is...
The other Mike, your horror buddy, talking about sequels this week because we're going to do, some interesting stuff on here we're going to talk about.
So this was inspired by the idea, I think you wanted to discuss Aliens and Predator and all that, and we've actually done those on the podcast a few times before you came along to join us in the booth. But it did spawn the idea, the standard discussion of, like, how do you make a good sequel? What is a good sequel that's actually better than the original, or yada yada? And the obvious two answers are The Godfather Part 2 and Aliens.
Yep.
Those are the two.
Yes.
Everyone lists those ones, and that's it. End of discussion, those are the two. And the thing is, we looked up a list from Time Magazine from about 10 years ago. And they listed Godfather Part 2 on the list of best sequels. And they didn't list Aliens.
Yeah, but I mean, they listed Paddington too, so maybe they got there.
There's a really weird entrance on there, but if you're gonna list anything, you list who on their staff was sitting there going Aliens too? Aliens just isn't as good as Alien. I mean, come on, how do you disagree with this?
We could sit here and talk about that for hours and be right on both directions, but we can both agree that it is a fantastic movie, and how it's not on the it's a joke that it wasn't on the list and you put Paddington on
that right there alone should disqualify it. But we're gonna debate this list anyway. I've actually reorganized it for us so we can bang out some of the dumb entries out quickly.
Yes.
Among them, I'm not going to debate Godfather Part 2. I haven't watched the Godfather series because I don't have 9 hours in me to watch gangsters be gangsters. I'm just saying.
Find at least 6 hours and watch 1 and 2. You can pass on 3. As an Italian American who grew up with an Italian household, I have seen these movies. They're both very good. 1 is slow going, 2 is much better. But again, 2 is much better because they amped up the violence and the action.
It was meant to be the conclusion of the story, and then the studio was like, "We need a third one," and they're like, "Oh, well, okay."
Don't waste your time.
Okay, that's fine. Movies that we both thought were kind of weird to have on this list because the list is mostly action and sci-fi.
Right.
Paddington 2, which not going to take away from it. I actually liked the first Paddington. Haven't seen the sequel. Feel no need.
Seen neither, but I'll agree with you.
It's Paddington. He's a cute bear. The Brits love him. Sure.
Yeah.
How to Train Your Dragon 2, which, I mean, it's got dragons, so I guess it's kind of genre, but I liked the first one better.
I like the whole franchise. I don't think there's a bad movie there. If you want to say 2 is better than 1, sure, I guess we can agree on that. But there really isn't a bad one in 1, 2, 3. Moving on.
And then we have what I feel starts the trend of this list kind of cheating. Toy Story 3. Not Toy Story 2, which would be the sequel, but Toy Story 3, which, one, they said that was the best one, and I have thoughts on this. But also, it's a third movie. It's not like that. If I want to be pedantic, and there's going to be some pedantry on this list, and we're going to include any sequel, like, it's really weird to me. They're like, well, we've got a franchise now. Let's say that the third one's better than the other two.
Right. Sure. I think it was a really great conclusion to a trilogy. I thought it ended very well. You can say it's better than 1. Okay. Was it better than 2? I might have said so, but you brought up some really good points that we'll talk about some other time. But 2 might have been better even. And it's fine, I guess, but it's definitely better than 1. I'll give you that.
2 has a definite growth of Woody's character that I feel is violated by the later 2 movies for sure. Oh my god. But yeah, no, we can do a Toy Story podcast at some point down the road. But suffice it to say that whether you think 2 or 3 is better, it's weird that these are on this list because I just think it's kind of weird they're on this list, honestly.
They don't really belong with the theme going on for these other 20 or so movies.
We then come into a chunk of franchise sequels that we also can just bang out quick.
Right.
Because, okay, so, sure, the first 2 Mission Impossible movies were kind of the weakest of the set. The second is almost unwatchable trash. But the franchise kind of reboots itself with the third one, and then it's just a consistent, continuity and vibe and series with J.J. Abrams and then Christopher McQuarrie kind of, working together to create this zone. That almost feels like the TV series on the big screen. And that's the weird thing about saying any of these movies should be on this list. And they specifically mentioned Fallout, which I do think is the best of the run, don't get me wrong. But this is a franchise that technically has been running since the 1960s. So everything is a sequel to that. And it's just weird to have a franchise this long on a list to be like, well, this one movie in particular is the one we're going to highlight.
Yeah, we're going to single this one out of the last 4.5 movies that were all really good at the same time. Since 1 and 2, 3 was good, and then this whole, like you said, this reboot here, starting maybe with like Ghost Protocol or whatnot, was just they're all, you know what you're getting. You're getting a lot of action. You're getting Tom Cruise being not crazy Tom Cruise, just being good actor Tom Cruise, and you're getting a good story.
Yeah.
You know what you're signing up for. None of these are bad. If you want to say it's better, I think the list is a matter of opinion at that. I'm not going to say any of these are worse than the others in the Mission Impossibles, but sure, we can go with this one being better.
Whether or not, sure. Thor Ragnarok is on the list, and I have an issue with this, not because I think it's a bad movie. I do think it's the best of the Thor movies. But when you're talking about the MCU, you're talking about a franchise of 40 movies and TV shows right now. Yeah. And like 6, 7, 8, 12 of them have Thor in them at some respect. So like, how do you single out one Thor movie and say this is better than the other 2, the other 12, the other however many? Like, it's a continuous story. Each one is individualized to a certain extent, but you can't get to Thor Ragnarok without 2 Avengers, 2 Thor movies, and a couple of other things in the process.
Yeah, the intertwined spider web of all these Marvel movies being, I just picture the dude Charlie from It's Sunny with the, the stuff on the wall with all the, the yarn pieces going to every point of the map. Like, that's exactly like what it is. And yes, we can both agree that Ragnarok is the strongest of all the Thor movies, but it's not a sequel. It wasn't even his second appearance. It was at best, if you want to argue timeline, his third, and was probably even more than that. So it's a good movie. It's better than the first one, whatever.
It's a franchise. And that's my issue with the next, like many of these on this list, but Logan specifically is the conclusion of Wolverine's story. I agree it was the best of his movies, but that's kind of hard not to do when you've got, X-Men Origins Wolverine kicking off. Like, the bar was set pretty fucking low there, guys. But it's also this thing of, like, we're talking about a character that has shown up in basically every X-Men movie from Fox save one. Yes, this was the conclusion of his story, but at the same time, you get to the conclusion and you appreciate it for what it is because you watched 8 other movies with him in it.
Yeah, the feels at the end of that movie were real. Saying goodbye to a character who was just one of the best superhero characters that we've seen over the last 20 years or so of any superhero franchise. He got the send-off he deserved. He got the movie he deserved. It was not a sequel. To your point, it was a conclusion, but damn, it was good.
It was a good conclusion. It was a great conclusion. I don't debate that. It's just a weird inclusion on this list. Fast 5 is another weird one for me. And I mean, I don't debate the point they're making. Fast 5 is probably the best of the Fast and Furious run.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's certainly everything in the run is better than Too Fast, Too Furious and Tokyo Drift. Like, the bar was set real low. And I know they had to kind of reboot for Fast and Furious, the 4th movie, which is consistently poorly named. But, like, again, are you watching the 5th one if you haven't watched the other 4? Are you sitting there going, man, like, I only can watch the 5th one because I just feel like it's the only good sequel of the set. I don't think you do. I just don't.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, we were talking about this at work, a week or two ago about the Fast franchise and whatnot, and how the movies used to be about the cars, and then it just seemed like every movie progressively got one up of how much crazier could we be, and I feel like it really kind of took off for the at 5, where they go through the city dragging the safe around and whatnot. Great action, fantastic sequences. But then it got to the point where how can we one up this again? Oh, I know. In the 9th one, we'll get a submarine or whatever. Like,
we'll go to space.
It just got wilder and wilder, and it went from a movie about cars and stealing, flatbeds and 18-wheelers to about just crazy. But it is the best of the most recent. I'll give it that. It's a good movie, but again, Fast 5, it's in the name. It's not Fast 2.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This one is weird for me, not because I think it's the bad one. I actually do think number 3 is the best of the set, although I know you disagree slightly. But it's this thing of, like, again, are you, like, and we're going to touch upon this with a specific movie down near the end of this chunk of this list, but are you sitting there going, I'm just going to watch the 3rd one? Like, I don't care about his first 2 years in fucking Hogwarts or whatever the hell school's called. It's Hogwarts. I don't care about his first 2 years in Hogwarts. I only care about his 3rd year. Really?
I mean, I guess the argument could be made, like, even that this is where the story really starts.
It is. Stylistically, yes.
Yeah, you get a lot of background of them as children. You see the whole Chamber of Secrets and learn the relationship between Ron and Hermione and Harry
Mm-hmm.
starts building. The third one is where it really starts taking that more adult turn. I think you brought up last time talking about where it
Alfonso
really just kind of
Cuarón really just like
yeah.
nailed the tone. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt almost like, sad at points in a way
Mm-hmm.
instead of just like happy, wizardy, magical movie. There was some consequences
Yeah.
there, and it really started taking off. From that point to the finale of the series. It was quite good. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the thing is like you're gonna have your own personal favorite, whether it's that one or Goblet of Fire or Order of the
Mhm.
Phoenix. But like you can single out specific elements you liked from each movie. But if you're a Harry Potter fan, you're a Harry Potter fan. You're not just like
Yeah.
a Prisoner of Azkaban fan.
Yeah, and we'll get to another movie soon. That's like, I'm not going to sit down and watch Harry Potter 6. I'm not going to sit down and watch this movie
Yeah.
either.
Oh yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get to
But
that.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I feel like, is a cheat. Not because it's better or worse. It's Christmas Vacation. It's a fine movie.
Mhm.
But the reason why everyone loves this one is because it's on fucking blast on TBS every year. You know?
Yeah, it is. And I'll be honest, if I don't get to see it 8 times between December 1st and Christmas, I've failed. I think there's a lot of funny in this movie. Randy Quaid as Eddie is an absolute treasure.
In this one and not in the sequel, yes.
Yeah, he's just so good in this movie, and the comedy is so there. And as an adult, I can appreciate the humor so much more. I love it. It's not a sequel. It's my favorite holiday movie. Going away. But I love it. I love that it's on this list, but I agree, it's not a sequel.
And I think that's actually a point to be raised. Like, you might have seen Christmas Vacation because it's on TBS all the fucking time during the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Like, how many people are sitting there going, I saw this. Maybe I should go back and watch the first 2 Vacation movies. I know it's a franchise. There's like 5 or 6 things in this franchise for it. But it's like, it's National Lampoon's Vacation. You may have watched it. You may not care. European Vacation. You may have watched it. You may not care. Christmas Vacation is done in such a way to stand completely on its own, a true standalone sequel. And like, it's just a holiday classic on its own. Putting it on this list is weird because it's just standalone.
I mean, if we're gonna put that on this list, why don't we put Van Wilder on there while we're at it? That's a National Lampoon movie, right?
Yeah, like, and are they a franchise? Do they have an interconnected whatever? Like, no.
Yeah, is he some sort of distant cousin of Chevy Chase? I mean, whatever.
I could see it. I honestly thought at one point, this is tangent, and we only have so much time here, but tangent. I really did feel like Ryan Reynolds would have been the perfect Fletch at the time.
Oh God, he's so funny.
He's so funny. He would have been great. He didn't want to take the role, and I understand that at the time that they were debating doing another Fletch, Chevy Chase still had some clout in Hollywood, and no one wanted to take the character from him. No one cares now. Chevy Chase is a douche. But at the time, with the reactions in Van Wilder, I really felt like Ryan Reynolds would have been the perfect young Fletch, and that just didn't happen. So.
Make a note. Let's do a Ryan Reynolds podcast at some point too, because that guy's hilarious.
Oh yeah, I would do that. That'd be great. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is arguably for many people the best of the original series Star Trek movies. And that is a lot of asterisks I just had to put on that, which should show you why it's weird this is on this list, okay? We have to specify original series movies, not any of the other movies, not like the TV show that came before it. You have to watch a bunch of stuff to enjoy Wrath of Khan. Like, you should probably see Space Seed from the original series before you even go into this. It's a lot of caveats you got to make to say, well, yeah, and then of course, Wrath of Khan's the best sequel. Well, sure, okay.
You can argue, and yes, it's Star Trek 2. You can argue this is where the movie franchise actually started.
Yes,
and I think you brought up that point. And is this movie good? Yeah, it's good.
Fantastic.
Is it? But you need to know the dynamic between Khan and Kirk to even have this work in a movie setting. You got to know what that's all about. And if you don't know the background, it's just a good movie. The original Star Trek: The Motion Picture, terrible. Is this better?
Boring.
Yeah. But again, it's a weird one on this list because it fits, I guess. But you can argue that this is the first movie.
Yeah, it's practically a reboot. Like the motion picture took a lot of ideas that were meant for a second Star Trek show, Phase 2, and made them into a movie. And then when that didn't work, I mean, it made money, but it really wasn't a hit with audiences and wasn't the smash that they were expecting. They practically rebooted. They brought a different director on board, Nicholas Meyer. They did new costumes, a new set, basically new everything to wash the taste of the motion picture away. They learned the lesson, and in that regard, it's a good sequel. But it really is the start of that specific era of the franchise, and the franchise didn't look back. That was the era they sat in for a while.
Yeah, it's a really good movie, but again, there's some dynamics here you can talk about and make arguments for. But anyway, moving on.
This one, you go.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Is it good? Hell yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Is it better than the first one? Maybe, but they're all pretty good. But you know what? Like, we're not gonna sit down and just say, you know what? I feel like watching The Two Towers today because you can't watch one without the other.
No, you don't sit there and go, I'm just gonna watch the second of the Lord of the Rings. I don't want to know how they got where they were going. I don't want to know whether or not the ring ends up in Mordor. I just want to see this middle section of walking and fighting. Like, no one does it. You sit down on a weekend, especially around the holidays, you pop all 3 extended editions into your DVD player, and you sit there for 12 hours of walking because that's what you do. You don't just watch the middle one. This is dumb.
It is the second part of a 3-part act that they decided to make 3 movies that are 27 hours long. And one day, I've said it to work with a buddy at work, and it's funny because this was before you and I said we were going to talk about it. I said, when I find 14 hours one day, I'm going to sit down and watch them all because they go from like 4.5 to 5 to 5.5 hours or some ungodly crazy number. It's nuts.
It's nuts.
But you know what? But I said I'm gonna watch them all. I'm not gonna watch just one.
Not one. You're not just gonna start with Fellowship and be like, okay, I'm good. I've got what I wanted. No. And you're not gonna just watch especially the middle one. I mean, if you're gonna single out any of one, maybe you're just like, I just kind of want to see how it ends again to remind me. Maybe you watch Return of the King alone, but that's not the one on this list. It's the second, the middle. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't quite understand. I mean, it's fine. Put it on the list, I guess. It's good, but
it's one movie. No. It's just the 3 of them together are one movie because that's the vision. So that's it. More than any other item on this list, this is the one I disagree with the hardest. Even more than not having aliens on this list, I disagree with this more. So now we get into the good ones, the ones that I actually think we can discuss properly as sequels, because that's kind of how they're intended. And I'm going to let you actually bring out your thoughts first, but I think this one is perfect to have on this list, even though it's the 4th movie, because it's Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, this one, it's such a good movie. It is fantastic. You can argue that it's a sequel because, you know, the original Road Warrior, like it's very raw compared to Mad Max 2. And it's another one of those movies you can say is like, you know, almost Mad Max 2 is like, you know, the beginning part of the franchise.
Because if you go and watch the 2 of them, like Mad Max into Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, it feels like night and day, 2 different universes. The main character's named the same, but he doesn't act the same. The world doesn't look the same. There's nothing similar between the 2 movies. So you could skip Mad Max and not really know anything was missing, and you could skip Beyond Thunderdome because that movie sucks. So,
I mean, it had Tina Turner. Sure.
It still sucks. It still is just awful. No. But Fury Road takes the concept of Road Warrior and builds it perfectly into basically a 2-hour-long action sequence, and it is goddamn brilliant.
Yeah, we can do a talk about that movie too, because oh god, that movie so good. Next one, Captain America: Winter Soldier. I like this movie. I think that Civil War is a stronger entry in the Captain America, just because it's so visceral how it gives me that, like, you know, that Star Wars, you know, Empire Strikes Back vibe where it ends on a sad note, you know, Cap and Bucky walking away and whatnot, and the fight with Tony at the end, you know, these brothers in arms who saved the universe twice are now not friends anymore. It's a really good movie. But Winter Soldier is what we're talking about. That's a really good movie. I agree that it's better than the first one. You saw a lot of really great potential out of Steve Rogers in that, and you get Bucky back, and Bucky is a good character. I like him a lot.
Yeah, the thing I like about having this movie on the list is, yes, there's an internet-connected spider web, and everyone crosses over with everything else, but the way that Captain America was set up, he was the last movie in that first saga before the Avengers crossover happened. So he basically goes from the first Avenger, which is a rushed movie, but good in its own way, into Avengers, into Winter Soldier. And it's like a 3-movie progression for him, one to the next, and it works. It's growth for his character without anyone getting in the way otherwise. And Winter Soldier is just such an interesting turn of a film, and how it goes and how it tries to keep everything grounded without a lot of the other superheroes getting involved now that they've all started crossing over. This is the movie that I feel like shows the potential for what the MCU could be, even without all the characters doing their big crossovers.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch this one over again. I always go to Civil War when I go to watch a Captain America solo movie just because it's my favorite. I'm going to watch Winter Soldier back again because you always bring up a really good point about a movie. Like, oh, yeah, shit, I forgot that. Let me go see that again and see how I feel about it this time now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I understand. I understand is what I'm saying.
And when we're talking about interconnected movies, why I don't think Lord of the Rings should be on this list at all. Like, do I go back and just watch Captain America Winter Soldier? Fuck yes, I do. This movie is great. So, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now, whichever one you might think of, like the three movies in this trilogy, whichever one you want to like, single out as the best one: Rise or Dawn or War, Day, Night, Return, whatever fucking movies they come up with next. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I think, is the next one. Like, this single trilogy, masterminded by two different directors and all with Andy Serkis in the role, is fantastic. This is a great trilogy of films that takes the concept from the original 5 from the 1960s and 70s and builds it into something more. All 3 of these are better sequels than the 5 that came before in their own little self-contained unit. Would I single out Dawn over Rise? I don't know if I would do that. I think, actually, I like Rise better. But all 3 of these are great. And if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to sit down to watch these 3.
Yeah, another one of those, trilogies right here where you got to watch them all in a row, and that's not just about one single movie. And to me, like, the fact Andy Serkis makes this movie belong on this list, on his own. He is so good as Caesar, and you said last time, Gollum is another one of the characters he's known for from Lord of the Rings, which you already had on this list. He does a really great job as Gollum, and it's fine. But Caesar is just
so good,
so relatable,
so real.
And yes, and just like very real as a leader. You feel like you could see the emotion that he brings to that role, and the eyes and the emotions that he shows. It's so good. And I got to give that to Andy Serkis for being, probably one of, if not the greatest, motion capture actors of our generation and time, because he makes this movie what it is. And anything he does in movies, for me, is reason enough to watch.
Going in, the monkeys and the apes are CGI, but you forget it because of his performance.
Yep.
Now, we have one on this list that I know you and I both haven't watched. And the only reason I kept it on here is because it is technically a sequel. And I think Richard Linklater is a fantastic director. I keep meaning to watch these, but I just don't have it in me to watch 2, 4, 6 hours of two people having a long conversation for an entire day. It's the same reason why I've never been able to sit down and watch My Dinner with Andre. I know it's a great movie. I know people. I'm a cinema guy and I haven't watched it, but just watching two guys have a long conversation over dinner, no matter how good it might be, sounds so boring, and I just can't bring myself to do it. So, and that's where I am with these. The Before series, before midnight, before sunrise, before sunset. It follows these characters at 3 different points in their life, 8 years apart between them, because Richard Linklater likes to do weird things like this. And I know they're great romances. People have raved about that, but I haven't watched them. I'm going to keep it on the list because, yes, sure, true, whatever. But make up your own mind.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of these, full disclosure. I know the director loves these epic long periods of time. He shot that one movie over a period of 10 years or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, Boyhood. Yeah, and I haven't seen that either. And I feel like this movie's on this list because of the quality of the director and his body of work. But I mean, I feel like you could have, to your point, picked any number of these movies in this franchise and said this was the best. So maybe I'll watch it one day. It's not my cup of tea. I'd rather honestly even just go watch Two Towers. I won't even do that. So maybe I'm lying, saying I'll get to it. But we'll see.
Good. So this one I absolutely agree with. The Dark Knight. Batman Begins is a fantastic movie. It washed away the stink of the fucking Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and just gave you
the bat nipples.
Bat nipples.
The bat nipples.
The Bat Gold card that he uses. Oh my god, so terrible.
George Clooney. It's like they took the idea of the fun kind of quirky, almost circus-like atmosphere that Tim Burton brought to the movie and said, how can we one-up this even more as we keep going? And just whatever. Those movies are fine. Michael Keaton's always my Batman, but at the end of the day, yeah, this movie's so
The
good.
Dark Knight
And
is
oh
so
god.
good. It takes what was set up in Batman Begins and then
Mhm.
adds the Joker. And that's really all I wanted, because Heath Ledger's Joker is phenomenal. He's my Joker. He's just the best.
He is so good,
Mhm.
and you can debate, who's the better Joker, Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger. Sure, they both have excellent qualities, and we should do a talk about that too,
Sure,
because I mean,
sure.
you can go either way on that one. But for this particular movie, Heath Ledger almost stole the show from Bruce Wayne, and I think he may have done it.
He did.
Christian Bale's
It's
good as
his movie.
Batman,
Yeah.
but when you see the Joker, you look for that real rival to Batman. There is a reason why the Joker and Batman are just synonymous with back the good and evil back and forth in this
Mhm.
franchise,
Mhm.
and you can't get that wrong. But at the same time, like that, you could have never gotten that more right when
Yep.
it came to this situation.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That he is so good in the role, and he fits so perfectly in the world that he makes
Mhm.
Joker better. So, or he
Yeah,
makes Batman better for his inclusion.
it does.
So we've got a few more that I know we need to bang out quick. Some of them I'm going to agree with. Some of them I don't. I think it's worth touching upon Hellboy 2,
Hmm.
because Guillermo del Toro is a fantastic director. And
Hmm.
Hellboy is a great superhero movie for when it was released and how it was done. Hellboy 2 is a terrible Hellboy movie.
Yeah, it's not good.
Mhm.
I mean, it's another one of those movies where you up the action a little bit more and try to say it's better. I just think the story is better in Hellboy One.
It is.
I buy into the characters more. You didn't try to overload me with a lot of shiny things or whatnot.
Mhm.
Ron Perlman does a great job in both
Yes,
movies. Don't get me wrong, but Hellboy One's just better.
it
I'm
is. It is.
sorry.
Hellboy 2 is a Guillermo del Toro movie. Hellboy 1 is a Hellboy movie.
I like Guillermo del Toro.
Mhm.
I love Pacific Rim. I love these bad sci-fi movies. And is Hellboy 2 a bad sci-fi movie? Yes.
Mm.
But is it better than Hellboy?
No,
No.
it's not. Uh, the Bourne Ultimatum. This one I have issues with, because I
Hmm.
think everything that came after the Bourne Identity is not as good as the Bourne Identity by any stretch of
Yeah.
measure.
Nope. Yeah. Not even
Not even
close.
close.
Like, and maybe,
He had the girl, and the two of them worked
yeah.
together, and there was this chemistry to them that the next movies just couldn't touch. And it's like an
Mhm.
unnecessary continuation because he got his happy ending.
Yeah, that movie, I went into that movie expecting it to be, whatever, maybe like a Mission Impossible, maybe, some kind of like, not superhero, but like, spy
Hmm.
movie, or it subverted a lot of
It did. It
expectations in the Bourne Identity. And it was really
was really
good.
good.
And all the movies, again, it's that formula: up the action, up the stakes, up the
Lose the
money.
character.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it just wasn't as good as the first one. It was good, but the first one, there's a reason why imitation is sincerest form of flattery,
Hmm.
and you try to imitate that feel you got in the first one, you didn't get it. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Okay, these next two can be grouped together, and I don't think it's unfair to do this. Spider-Man 2 and X2 X-Men United. Two
Hmm.
sequels that came out during the start of what can really be considered the superhero boom. They both nailed it.
Right.
I'm not debating that. They're both bigger movies. They both have great villains. They both expand the
Hmm.
world. I think they're easy answers on this list because, yeah, of course, they're everyone agrees they're the better movies. But sure, they're the better movies.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine. You can go back and forth on this one again if you want. Saying what's better, the original or the second one. The neither one is
No,
bad. They're both fine, but I mean, I get why you put them here, but again, I feel like again they just don't really belong for me.
it's weird. It's like Spider-Man 1 had the Green Goblin, who I think, despite how
Yeah,
good Doc Ock is, Green Goblin's the better villain. X-Men
yeah.
2 is a larger movie, and it has a kick-ass Wolverine killing dudes in the mansion. So I'll put it on this list, but yeah,
Mhm,
placement's debatable. Terminator 2 is an interesting one for this list, just because it feels like a different movie from the first one. First one is a
mhm.
horror movie. The second one's an action movie. And I don't know if I'd call one better than the other.
Again, this is one of those situations on this list where I think we have had one or two of these where they're both just as good as the other
Hmm.
one. You're just gonna wax poetics about, do you like the horror aspect or the action
Hmm.
aspect more, but
Hmm.
both are fantastic. And this one had more draw and power because Arnold was Arnold at this
Yes.
point. He wasn't just some Swiss bodybuilder that they put in a role because he worked as like this
Swiss rolls.
giant vicious beast. Yum, tasty. Phrasing. But it, the star power of Arnold, I think at this point, maybe enhance the thought of why this is better. I think you can argue that it's better, and I wouldn't argue that you're wrong, but they're both very good, and that's something we can both
Yep.
agree on.
Silence of the Lambs over anything in the franchise. I agree with. It's just for most
Yeah.
people, they don't remember it is a franchise that started before Silence of the Lambs. Manhunter came out from Michael Mann, is a terrible
Mhm.
rendition of Red Dragon that has been thankfully forgotten by most people except for me. Um, and yes, if you want to say the franchise star was Silence of the Lambs, you're not wrong because every movie to come out after, including a remake of Red Dragon, has mirrored the
Mhm.
Silence of the Lambs style. So yeah, it's a sequel, sure. If you want to say that Manhunter was the first one, I think this one's debatable.
I'm not even going to give this one the benefit or the doubt here. I'm going to say you're wrong. This is the best in the franchise,
Yes,
and it was the first
it
moving
is the
on.
first moving on. Superman 2, I think, is a worse movie than Superman because it was cobbled together by two different directors after the first director was fired. It didn't get to do
Mhm.
his vision, and why it's on this list, I don't understand.
It's been a while since I saw this first
Mhm.
one, and I got this mixed up last time, thinking this was the Richard
That's
Pryor
number
one,
3.
but that's Superman
Yeah.
3. I remember the most recent Zod more so than this Zod. I remember the movie,
70s
but it's been
Zod.
a while. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I'd have to watch it again. But I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I don't remember it as much as I remember Superman
Yeah.
1. Maybe it was I think you brought up the 8-minute monologue that they gave Superman on the ride over to Earth,
Mhm.
or the very long talk that Jor-El gives him when he finds the Sanctum of Solitude. That just, why did you do this for 15
Oh my
minutes in the
god,
middle of the
yeah.
movie?
Ugh.
But maybe that's why it was more memorable. But you know what? I also watched a 3-hour Ali movie and fell asleep. So
True. Very, very true. All right.
mhm.
So quickly scurrying down this list because we are reaching the dregs now. Okay. So is Empire Strikes Back the best Star Wars movie? Yes. Is it an easy
Yes,
answer to put on this list? Yes. Like no
yes.
debate. Like it's not the conclusion of the trilogy, and it's weird again to have a second movie on here because I mean now with all three of them out, like
Mhm.
from Star Wars to Return of the Jedi, like you're not just gonna sit down and watch one. You're gonna make a day of it. You're gonna watch all three or make 3 evenings of it or something. You're gonna go in and you're gonna go through and you're gonna go from Luke to darkness to teddy bears, and that's
Mhm.
just how it's gonna be. Is Empire the best of the set? Sure. Is it a
There's a
yeah?
reason.
It's there's a
There's
reason.
a reason why any Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, you can throw on TNT,
Mm-hmm.
TBS, whatever your local TV, and see these movies
Mm-hmm.
on a replay, like just one after the other. Yes, Empire is the best. Yes, we can agree
Yep.
on that. And some of them are quite bad as they get longer
It's a
along.
franchise at this
Um,
point. Like, are they
yeah.
all better than the goddamn two direct-to-TV Ewok movies? Oh my god, yes. But
Look, it can. I mean, yeah, like
franchise
some of
films,
them are.
yeah.
We'll do a Star Wars talk at some point too. I think we may have done a little bit, and I got feels on what they did to my boys. But yes, we can both agree that the tone of this movie was set in sadness at the
Mm-hmm.
end. The reveal of Vader being Luke's father. I can't imagine what that was like for people seeing that in theater at the time. But I mean, is it the best of the franchise? Yeah. Is it better than the others?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, this was an easy
This was an
one.
easy one. Dawn of the Dead is on this list, and it feels like a cheat, not because I debate whether or not this is a better movie than Night of the Living Dead. It is. George Romero wanted to make a
Mhm.
zombie movie, and he wanted to own the rights to it. Good for him. It's not a direct sequel. It is at best a universe builder, because, it's set kind of on the same day of a zombie apocalypse, and then the aftermath, and different characters, and different time period, and everything. It's just like he wanted to play with zombies, and he wanted to continue building his ideas. I think it's better than Night of the Living Dead. It's not really a sequel, though.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of movies in this
Hmm.
franchise. And I think what was the most recent one? Well, not most recent, but the one that was like 10, 15 years ago with Ving Rhames that came
That was the
out and
remake Dawn
whatnot.
of the
That
Dead, yeah, from Zack
yeah,
Snyder.
okay, I didn't. Yeah, and that was a really good
Mhm.
movie. And
I'll
but
debate you on that
again, we're talking
one. we
I mean,
when we talk these
I
movies in its
liked
own
it.
podcast, I'll debate you on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I mean, it's fine. You want to put this on this list, I get it. Time Magazine, but I mean, you're not stretching to say that it was better when it clearly just
And
was.
by the same logic, this next one, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, is weird on this list. I actually think this movie's boring, and I like For a Few Dollars More better. But the only thing that's associated between them is Clint Eastwood, who's playing a guy with no name, which he actually doesn't in the third movie. It's not that he's even playing the same character, it's just that they're Sergio Leone movies, and they kind of all have Clint Eastwood in them. They're not meant to be sequels, they were just branded as
Right.
So, From Russia with Love is technically the first James Bond sequel in movie form. But this is a cheat for me, because how many fucking books were there at this point and they knew it was a franchise, you know? And we have 26 of these movies now to say, oh yeah, From Russia with Love is a good sequel to the first one. I mean, sure, but again, at that point, I think people were like, well, there's like 6 of these books out. We're going to just keep getting these, you know? You do know what you're getting with when you get Bond. And this is a Bond movie. Like, over Dr. No. I think it's better than Dr. No. Dr. No is racist in places. More so than From Russia with Love.
Yeah, so, you're not wrong about that.
Sure, but, you know, like, then you have, like, 5 other movies from Sean Connery at this point. Like, it's a franchise. And they already knew it was a franchise. This movie is a cheat having it on this list. It's the second one. That's why I include it in this chunk, but it's a cheat. And finally, and this is the one I really want to touch upon here at the very end, Bride of Frankenstein. And I don't know how most people feel about it. Most of the Frankenstein movies from Universal were trash. But the first one is gorgeously, like, tragic with the monster and the performance from Boris Karloff. And it's such a good monster movie, better than Dracula, at least the American Dracula. We need to discuss these at some point. Bride of Frankenstein, I view as a gimmick. It's like the Wii U of fucking Frankenstein movies. Yes, it has some cool features. There's some really interesting compositing they do in it. It's trash otherwise. Frankenstein's the better film.
Yeah, I mean, this is where, several instances where the original can't be topped by the sequel, even though you really want to try, and you really want to make us believe it, but we don't. You're wrong. The fact this was number one, I guess, in their order on the list is sure, but I mean, no. To your point, like, everything you said is correct. I don't have much to say besides no.
No, it's not. Frankenstein's the better film. And if you take anything away from this podcast, Frankenstein is the better film.
Yeah. Just take that away with you. You know, we talked about quite a few things. We got opinions on a lot of stuff here, but you know what? At the end of the day, Frankenstein
is better. That's really the only lesson you need to learn after 40 minutes of this. And with that bombshell, this has been Not So Live from Asteroid G. I'm Mike Finkelstein.
And I'm Mike as well. You guys have a good one.